come in today to talk about the Inwood Bridge, requesting a supplement on this project for preliminary engineering. I'll give you a little background on the project. This is a bridge, if you're not familiar with it, it's up in Swatara State Park. It's a 150-foot long through-truss bridge over the Swatara Creek. It was built in 1899, and the project was on the Transportation Improvement Plan with PennDOT, even before there was an MPO here at the county, probably in the early 90s, mid-90s. The project was first identified for replacement, and that's how it was scoped, as a replacement project. The bridge at that time was not deemed eligible for the historic register for historic places or buildings, so at that time it was probably a pretty straightforward project. As time went on, the bridge then became eligible for the register, and we began our design of that project as a replacement project, and that was what we scoped to do. And we proceeded into preliminary engineering, looking at that as a replacement. We studied alternatives for rehabbing the bridge and replacing the bridge, elimination of the bridge, and we had concluded over a number of times that replacement was the option that we wanted to go with for various reasons, and I think I came in and presented those reasons to the commissioners. In the course of going through that and pushing that, or attempting to push that preferred, what we thought was the preferred option through the powers that be, FHWA, PennDOT, FDHMC, and others, it became obvious to us that the rehab option was going to be the only one that they're going to allow us to really pursue to make this thing happen. But at the end of the day, the bridge is going to look like it looks right now, but it's going to practically be a brand new bridge.
Size, width?
The span won't change.
Really?
How about the width of the bridge?
The width of the bridge will be the same as what it is. We'll have a new deck on the bridge. The tension members of the truss. How we envision us going and talking with McCormick Taylor, PennDOT's consultant representative, and PennDOT and others, is this bridge will be taken off of the abutments. It will totally be disassembled off-site in a fabrication shop. Tension members, they're fracture critical, and the pins at the truss connections, those members will literally be totally replaced with new steel. The stringers will be replaced. The floor beams will be replaced. The compression members will probably be saved. Those are the members that are heavier members. If you look at the bridge and they have lacing bars or lattice mark, they look like lattice members. They're the compression members. We can actually use those as templates and cut new members of steel to make brand new steel members out of those. The abutments are kind of a little bit up in the air. We think right now we're going to try to save the abutments. It might end up being we're just going to put new abutments in. But they'll look the same. We'll probably form liner them and make them look like they look right now. So that it does get us across the creek. It does satisfy. We'll get to 15 tons. You won't be able to drive a fire truck across it. You'll be able to drive an ambulance across it. The homeowners up there will be able to drive across the bridge if they need relief from the flooding.
Yeah.
We'll attempt to make the bridge slightly higher, maybe a foot higher than it is now, especially if we put new abutments in. We might be able to raise it up to mitigate, lessen flooding impacts.
Right.
We might be able to do that. The bridge slightly higher, maybe a foot higher than it is now, especially if we put new abutments in. We might be able to raise it up to mitigate, lessen flooding impacts.
Right.
We might be able to do that. So yes.
With the possibly raising it a foot or so, will that take a little bit of the belly out of the dip?
Well, we're fighting a couple things there.
Yeah. The trail goes across.
Here's what we got. We have 72, where we want to hit 72. That's much higher than the bridge deck is now.
Mm-hmm.
Then between the bridge and 72, we have a rail trail, which is lower than the bridge. It's the lowest point. So I have the bridge deck here, the rail trail's here, and 72's up here. I'd like to raise the bridge deck up closer to 72 to flatten that grade out between the two.
Put a culvert under for walking.
I can't get the culvert to work in this option. But we'll have to, and I've talked to DCNR about this, the park guy there. We'll probably have to just ramp their trail up to meet our roadway and ramp it back down. It'll probably take a 200 or 250 foot wedge of fill on both sides to bring us up to the new road grade, because we want to get that dip out of there.
Yeah. Okay.
That's one thing we like about that site. It's one of the highest points over Swatara Creek. From there all the way going south, all the state roads are underwater. South of there, before Inwood was the last one, and as far as the construction of the bridge, we think it's probably a $2 million project.
county's portion is 5%. Now, you've already agreed to the 5%,
For the
basically we're
new
on board,
construction, right.
do the work to the bridge, county's in for the 5%, which will come from liquid fuels. What's needed now is a supplement to add the additional hours of design to go to the rehab, which is an additional 1,000 hours at $95,449.90, of which again 5% is the county's share of $4,772, which would.
So that's where we wanna get with this thing.
I'd just like to say thank you for your patience and endurance and willingness to continue,
Yeah,
because I know
right.
that you've been jerked around. It wasn't you causing all these delays.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was others even from outside the state
Right, exactly.
that were lobbying and
Right.
making sure that you had plenty of
Well,
work.
That is, Old State Road has a low point in it between the bridge and Monroe Valley. And
Floods.
we think if we're gonna do this preservation project, that low point should be corrected, which would, cause that floods. In a flooding event, part of Old State Road is underwater. In one location, the bridge may be closed, the other location, people living between the two have a
Stranded.
problem. So we think that low point in the road should be corrected as part of this project, or
Understand you correctly, maybe Corey asked you, when you're all done with this, you will be able to get a fire truck across?
will not be able to get a fire.
Okay, that was a sticking
It's a
point years
15
ago.
ton bridge.
That was a sticking point. Years ago, I and Commissioner Litz had a very heated discussion on this whole thing. Number one, $2 million. How many people is it gonna serve? You go across the bridge, you make a left, you can go a quarter of a mile, there's a dead end. You go right, there's only 7 people live between there and the open field is. That's what we discussed years ago. But now we're gonna spend $2 million on this bridge, where we can't get a fire truck across. It services a very limited amount of people. Don't you think that $2 million could be used in this county in a lot better places? I mean, you can spend so much money on history. Now, we know why this is being done, Litz. It's your pet project.
I'm going to tell those 7 people that their lives don't matter.
How does their lives come into this? We argued this before. Now, wait a minute. The low spot he's talking about. Okay, I know all about that. I know that place like the back of my hand. The low spot. Now, anybody that lives along the Swatara, if they're that stupid, they see the water coming up and they don't get out, I got no pity for them. And they know enough to get out before the water comes out. So I'm not buying that argument. It's only 7 people.
I can physically fit a fire truck through the openings. We have like
Right.
14.
The weight is the issue.
It's
is
the
that right?
weight.
All right.
Now that,
Doing nothing is not an option, because that bridge will continue to deteriorate and eventually would fall into the stream, which is totally unacceptable, totally unsafe.
Right.
We have people who canoe underneath that bridge. It is a national and state recognized water trail. There's the environment to consider with lead paint. There's
Right.
all kinds of issues. Doing nothing is not an option. We would spend almost as much removing the bridge so that it wouldn't fall into the water as we would rehabbing it. So we might as well do it right and make some use of it, and give the people who live on the other side and also visitors to the park an access that is safe and desirable.
Accept the proposal, which is Mark's proposal, and approve and accept the proposal for the additional, the supplemental work, which would be the 1,002 hours at a total cost of $95,449.90. 5%, which is what you're responsible for, is $4,772.50
About 5,000.
to pursue the rehab option. That's the difference.
Also move.
Second, just a second question.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded to accept the proposal to do the additional work necessary to rehab the Inwood Bridge. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's approved.